Metacognition, we've talked about a few times now. It's cognition about cognition, or knowing about knowing, or thinking about thinking. And it involves a lot of things. It involves executive functioning, planning, evaluation, self-regulation, and it helps people perform cognitive tasks more effectively. And they have an example in the book from some research where they were teaching kids their math skills, teaching kids math skills. And they did this for over 30 days. And whenever a kid would get a wrong answer, they would have them think about why they got the wrong answer and to try to learn about adjustment, to try to learn from their mistakes. And that did help them significantly to improve their math skills, to think about why they got the answer wrong. Related to metacognition is what they call meta-memory. This is knowledge about memory. It involves both general knowledge about memory and knowledge about one's own memory. Example, I remember using this strategy here in this situation. Let's try it here in this situation. Or it didn't work, so let's not try that again. Thinking about the memories that you have. And these are going to be related to theory of mind. So theory of mind is the awareness of one's own mental processes and the mental processes of others, to be able to think about yourself and what you're thinking. From 18 months to 3 years, children begin to understand there's 3 mental states. There are perceptions, so that you can recognize that people, they see what's in front of their eyes, not necessarily what's in front of the kid's eyes. We talked about that before when people are like saying bye to someone on the phone and they'll wave at them. They begin to understand this idea that people have different perceptions. They begin to understand that there are different emotions, that people have different emotions. They're able to distinguish between positive and negative emotions. And third, they're able to understand the idea of people having different desires, to understand that everyone is looking out for their own interests and they have their own desires, and maybe their desires don't quite match up with yours. You may get to the understanding that some people like broccoli, even though you yourself do not like broccoli. So those 3 things again are the perceptions, emotions, and desires. So children aged 2 to 3 understand that desires are related to actions and simple emotions. And a key development, like I just said a little bit ago, is the understanding that others' desires may differ from their own. And then between 3 to 5 years age, children come to understand that the mind can represent objects and events accurately or inaccurately. And what this brings us to is the idea of the false beliefs tasks. Children become aware that people can hold false beliefs, that ideas that are not true, and this happens around the age of 5. Here's an example of a false belief task. If you hand a kid a box, on the box it shows Band-Aids, and you're like, what's inside this? And they'll say Band-Aids. They open it up, and if there's pencils in there, they're like, oh, wow, okay, this is a surprise. If we ask another person, what do you think they think are going to be in this box? If they say that other person's going to think pencils are in the box, they are failing this false belief task because they are looking at it from their own perspective and are not able to switch over to the other person's perspective. If they say they are going to think that there are Band-Aids in the box, that means they understand that that other person can hold a false belief because they do not have the information that that kid has. And so this increases quite a bit from 2.5 years, where like 80% of them get this task wrong, to about 3 years and 8 months, about 50% of the time, and then it continues to increase, and then by 90 months or so, it's 95% that are able to pass this task. Another really famous example of this task is the Sally and Annie false belief task. This is figure 14 if you would like to look at it. And so essentially in this task, Sally's got a little toy, a doll, and she puts the doll in a little crib, and then she leaves the room. Anne takes the doll and puts it in this box here. And then Sally comes back. Where is Sally going to look for this doll at? And so Sally left that doll in this crib, so that's where she would look for it, because she does not know that Anne has put it in this box. For kids that will pass this false belief task, that's what they'll say. They'll be able to put themselves essentially in Sally's shoes and understand that's where Sally would look for it. If they fail this task, they'll say that Sally will look in the box, even though there's no reason for Sally to think that. That's just what the kid has that knowledge, and so they're not able to put themselves in Sally's shoes. So they move from understanding beliefs can be false to realizing the same event can be open to multiple interpretations. And there are individual differences in when children can reach this milestone. There's another example from the book. You could see this as a couple of different things. So there's technically not a right answer, but younger kids, they will see it one way and they'll be like, that's the only way. And then as kids age, they're like, okay, yes, I can see how you could see it from 2 different perspectives. With the theory of mind, executive function is going to be related to this. So goal-directed behavior, self-control, all those things are going to be intertwined and linked together. With the metacognition in childhood, by age 5 or 6, children usually know that familiar items are easier to learn, that short lists are easier to remember, that recognition is going to be easier than recall, and that you're more likely to forget things over time. That gist is going to be easier than verbatim. In other ways, though, in childhood, their meta memory is going to be limited. They definitely have inflated opinion about their memory abilities. For example, if you do a memory game and you're like, we're going to give you 10 digits, how many of these numbers will you be able to remember? They're like, I'll be able to remember all 10. But no kid at that age is going to be able to do that because they don't have a good perception of their memory abilities. But by the time they become 11 or 12, they do become better at this. Metacognition in adolescence is related to an increased capacity to monitor and manage cognitive resources to meet the demands of whatever tasks are going on. And these increased metacognitive abilities results in improved cognitive functioning and learning. We've talked about this before. Adolescents will have a better meta level of understanding of how to use different strategies. There's going to be considerable variation, though, individual differences. Some adolescents are going to be better than others. But if you can, you would like to foster things like this to help them get better so that they can have better executive function, better self-control, all those things they could really benefit from. So there are several things in this chapter that hopefully you can think about, and if you work with kids or if you have kids someday, that hopefully you can try to enhance their skills in some of these areas. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. Thank you very much for listening.